Hey fam, welcome back. For most loads like dry van and flatbed, you're given the rate. The broker will say this lane pays $1,000 and you either take it or leave it at that rate. But for drayage shipments, you get to bid or quote on the load. You want to be competitive because you are quoting against other carriers. But if you want to know how to quote on drayage shipments and learn a few more key factors that should be in every quote, this video is for you. Let's go. So in order to quote on a lane, you have to start with your company standards. Like, what is your rate per mile? What are your assess rolls? What are the costs for your assess rolls? And most importantly, are you going to make a profit on the load? So when you get an email from your broker or your customer requesting you to send them a rate on a specific lane, you can believe that most times that email has gone out to multiple carriers. So first pro tip, make sure your quote is clear and make sure it shows everything that is included in that rate. So let's talk about what goes into a rate. So first is the line haul or base rate. And this is where your company standards comes in because you need your rate per mile. So the base rate is the rate per mile times the total number of miles. I usually use Google Maps to determine how many miles there are from my pickup to delivery and then back to the port or to the rail. Because remember, drayage shipments are always round trip. So you want to make sure you include all miles. So for instance, if your rate per mile is $2 and there's 500 miles total round trip, then 500 times the $2, your line haul or base rate would be $1,000. Secondly, we have fuel surcharge, which is a percentage of your line haul or percentage of your base rate. Fuel surcharge may be new for some carriers, so just think of it as a way to subsidize your fuel cost. When diesel prices start to go up, you can increase your fuel surcharge percentage, and then vice versa, you can reduce your fuel surcharge percentage once the diesel prices begin to come down. What you charge for fuel surcharge can be different than the next carrier. So it's going to go back to your company standards. What do you need to charge for fuel surcharge? In using our same example, line haul of $1,000, I would multiply that times my percentage. Let's say my percentage is 28%. 1,000 times 28% gives me $280. So my fuel surcharge is $280. Next is the chassis charge, which is directly related to the amount that you're being charged by the chassis provider. So say for instance, you pick up a chassis from the pool and it's DCLI chassis and they charge $24.95 per day. This expense you are passing on to the customer. You just want to make sure that you charge them the number of days that you're going to need the chassis. So you pick up your container, you go get it loaded or unloaded, and then you return it back to the port or the rail. However many days that takes is your charge per day to the customer. Now, how much you charge for your chassis depends on your company's standards. How much do you need to charge per day for a chassis to cover your chassis expense? Let's just say that I need to charge $40 per day for my chassis and it takes me 3 days to complete my shipment. I would charge $120 for my chassis. So your line haul, fuel surcharge, and chassis charges are the 3 key factors that must be in every quote that you send. Any additional charges above that are called accessorials or accessorials, but they are additional charges added to the rate based on the situation. For instance, detention charges, for instance, scale tickets, or maybe you are charging storage fees because you had to hold on to the container. But all of those would be accessorials or accessorials. As a customer receiving multiple rates per day, It's very important that you call out what your accessorials are up front. That way, just in case they come into play, the customer will already know how much you charge for each of them. So, pro tip number 2, when you send in your quote that includes your line haul, fuel surcharge, and chassis charge, make sure you include a list of your accessorials along with their rates as well. That way, if they do come into play, you need that detention time, or you have to hold a container and store it overnight, the customer will already know how much you charge. Let's take an import shipment for example. You just received an email from the broker saying, please give me a rate on this lane. It's coming from the Wando terminal in South Carolina, going to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then back to the Wando terminal. If you grab Google Maps, you'll see that the total miles that are round trip is 422 miles. If my rate per mile is $2 per mile times my 422 miles, I get $844 as my line haul or base rate. Fuel surcharge, currently I have it at 38%. Multiply 38% times your 844 line haul, and you get $320.72. And then finally, your chassis charge. Chassis charge, I currently charge $40 per day. And I know it's going to take me 2 days to complete this shipment. So 2 times the $40 is $80. So now I have my 3 key factors that must go into every quote. If you total this up, my rate is $1,244.72. That brings me to pro tip number 3. There's actually an app out there that I recommend, and it's called the Drayage Quoter. I've used it in the past, and it makes drayage quoting so much easier. You're able to enter your company settings like your rate per mile, your fuel surcharge percentage, and also all of your accessorials and their rates. You can even email the quote directly to the customer from the app. It formats it in a way that it has the rate as well as the list of all of your accessorials. I will leave a link to that app in the description below so you can check it out. Okay, if you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.